Hi, everyone. Thank you and welcome to the City of Soledad Miramonte Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. And this is our special meeting of Monday, December 15th, 2025. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, those that are here in our council chambers and for those that are joining us through either our Facebook or through our YouTube channel. Correct? So thank you. And just a couple of announcements. Well, let me go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:03. Thank you again. And with that, if we can have roll call, please.
Member Ana Velasquez.
Here.
Member Fernando Alessandro Sanchez.
Here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And just again, before we go on to the Pledge of Allegiance, just to note, if you do want to make any comments for today's meeting, we do have the meeting ID, which is 843 for today's meeting. It's 843-966-1014. Again, 843-966-1014. We also have a phone number that you can call if you don't have access to the internet. It's 1-669-444-9171. So thank you. And with that, if we'll move on to our next item of business, which is a Pledge of Allegiance. If we can stand, please. And if you can, Beatriz, if you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, Andrea, and I didn't turn on my computer, so if you can just help me if there's anyone that's online, if there's anyone, once we get into the public comment section, if there's anyone that wants to make a comment. So at this time, there's any members of the public that may address the committee on any items of interest to the public that are within the jurisdiction of the Miramonte Affordable Housing Advisory Subcommittee. Speakers do have a limited time. We're going to limit to 3 minutes, and please be brief and to the point. So again, just typical, we don't take any action or have discussion on these items, but want to make sure that there's any need to respond, we will direct our city manager to take note of that. So let me open it up if there's any members of the public that are here with us in our chambers, and then we'll take it out to those that are joining us via Zoom. Are there any members of those that are joining us here in the chamber that would like to make any public comments? Okay, then let me take it out to those that are joining us via Zoom.
I do have someone titled Land Watch.
Okay. So if we can please raise your hand, or
yeah, can you hear me?
they
Okay.
can unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Laura Davis, commenting on behalf of Landwatch. The developer is legally required to enter into an affordable housing agreement that is consistent with the specific plan, as well as the applicable general plan. That agreement needs to cover the entire specific plan area, and it should come before discussions and determinations about the type and location of a few units in phases 1 and 2. The agreement must also explain how 30% of the units in each neighborhood will meet the rental mandate. The specific plan and VTM require that 30% of units in each neighborhood shall be designed to accommodate rental households. The agreement must also describe how the developer will meet the concurrency mandates under the VTM and specific plan, which require that Miramonte's IHO units be constructed concurrently, on-site, and in each development phase. It also needs to explain how the developer will meet the specific plan mandate that 20% of all the units be duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and smaller multifamily housing throughout the specific plan area and not just in phases 1 and 2. Lastly, the agreement needs to provide for the 58% affordable by design mandate under the 2005 general plan and 2009 housing element, since these were the requirements in effect when the VTM application was completed. In order to achieve the required affordability, the units need to be developed at higher densities. So the affordable housing agreement must provide either for rezoning or for a commitment to develop 58% of the units at higher densities. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Do we have any additional public comments? No? Okay, if there's no additional public comments, then at this time, we will close the public comment period and we will go into our committee business. And for today, we have our committee business, which is committee business item number 1, affordable housing plan for Miramonte specific plan area. And with that, we do have a committee report, advisory committee report, and I will turn this over. So this is from Community and Economic Development, and I will turn this over to Beatriz for, to provide us with a report.
Thank you. And I prepared a presentation that wasn't attached to the report with the information there, and I'll be happy to share that. It's just that I didn't have it ready on Friday. But I will go over the presentation. Andrea, if you can share the PowerPoint, please. So just a quick overview on the next slide is the background about this project. So this project is a 10-phase master plan community that it's going to produce 2,392 housing units. The Miramonte specific plan governs this development, and it is subject to the inclusionary housing ordinance. Just I know that most of us are familiar with that, but I just wanted to put that as part of a reminder. If anybody on the public is joining as a new participant, I just want them to have this background in case they want to go back to some of these documents. The developer under the inclusionary housing ordinance is subject to 479 affordable units through different income categories, very low, low, and moderate. So under this, under the inclusionary housing ordinance, the developer needs to produce 144 very low income units, 144 low income units, and 191 moderate income units. Today, we're focusing, even though we can talk about the affordable housing plan in general, we wanted to bring back phase 1 and 2 because in the past, the developer had met with the Affordable Housing Ad Hoc Committee proposing ADUs as a form to meet affordability requirements. The committee wasn't in agreement with that plan, so the developer has worked with his team and he has a different proposal for these 2 phases that we'd like to discuss today, but we can continue to take feedback for the rest of the affordable housing plan. So if we can go to the next slide.
So you're going to send that to us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So for phases 1 and 2, the developer is proposing a housing typology that it's called duets. Very similar to duplexes. The difference between a duet and a duplex is that the duet can actually be owned, each unit can be owned by a different owner. And he's proposing to do a total of 46 duets in phases 1 and 2. Later in the presentation, we have a map, and I included that as attachment A on the agenda packet. This type of unit is permitted through the Miramonte specific plan. And part of the reason why the developer is exploring this option is because it's more cost effective. At the beginning of the construction, when a project as big as Miramonte, it takes a lot of investment in infrastructure and just making sure that the land is development ready. So this is a strategy for the developer to meet the requirements from the inclusionary housing ordinance, while also trying to mitigate the impact that it takes a lot of the upfront costs to make sure that he has all of the utilities ready to go. So this is a way for the developer is proposing to meet our inclusionary obligation
while also trying to be cost effective. And also for moderate income households, this can be a type of housing typology that can help them own bedrooms, a housing type that may have more bedrooms, but it's a little bit less expensive than a regular single family dwelling unit because they share walls, because they have, it's a little bit more condensed. So it can also be an option for those that are part of our moderate income category. If we go to the next slide. So as a general overview for phases 1 and 2, the developer on phase 1 is required to produce 63 units. They are currently proposing to develop 26 duets on phase 1 and 60 apartments. This is the senior family complex that we had discussed in the past. The duets will target moderate, or they will fulfill the moderate income requirement. In the senior living apartments, they will attend to the low and very low income requirements. On phase 2, the developer is responsible for producing 114 units. They're proposing to develop 74 senior living apartments, and which are for low and very low income households, and 20 duets that are for moderate income. So in total, during phases 1 and 2, the developer is responsible for building 177 inclusionary housing units. And on his current proposal for those 2 phases, he's proposing to build 266 because he's trying to maximize the number of units by the duets. It's a small picture, but it was part of the attachment included as attachment 1. So the red dots are part of the phase 1 duets, the locations where he's planning or he's proposing to build the duets, which are the corners that tend to have a little bit more square footage, so he can maximize the use of the square footage at those corners. And the green dots are the duets for phase 2. And we can go to the next slide. That's the main change that happened since the last time that we discussed the affordable housing plan. Everything else in the affordable housing plan remains unchanged. The developer needs to produce 20% at each phase. Phase 1 and 2 were the ones that we had the more deeper discussion last time that this affordable housing plan was presented, because a developer wasn't meeting the 20% of inclusionary housing ordinance requirements in phases 1 and 2. But now this is a proposal that has changed slightly, and we have the developer in the room. We also have Dixie from Eden Housing, that it's a partner in this development. And I believe we also have Armenta on the line in case that we have more technical questions for them.
Okay. Thank you, Beatriz. So let me, before we have any comments from the members of the committee, since we have the developer and Dixie here, so I don't know if let me turn it over to them to see if they have any comments.
Good evening. Does that sound okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we've been working to figure out what's the best approach here on these first couple of phases as we get rolling here with Miramonte. We spoke about a year and a half ago, I believe, about certain approaches with, as mentioned, with the ADUs. We heard the feedback, and we found that this is a way for us to get the moderate rates in there as well as the low and very low, and it seems like we got a mix. And obviously we want to hear the feedback and see if this is amenable for you, but feel very comfortable that this will be a sort of a win-win for everyone. So, yes.
Hi, good evening. It's great to talk to you all again. I'm excited about this next iteration, especially with a little bit bigger in terms of duet units, which can help finance the infrastructure to get the road up to, which I believe is the last time we had a discussion. Is there any way we can go and look at the land use or the land diagram while we're talking? One of the things that we like to do particularly with the land donation and the affordable housing, to try and build it as close to at the same time as possible, is go in right after the roads and the infrastructure is in, which brings a lot of money that would otherwise we would have to raise on the affordable side to the table. So we want to be able to be ready for that. And so at that end, in continuing to work with the optimal number of homes for the seniors on this site, we're really still steadfast in that it seems to be a sweet spot around that 60 to 75 unit bandwidth, where you can do it either in one phase or you can do it in multiple phases. And that's how I'm modeling projects right now. So the key to this is to make sure that we're in that right geographic position so that we can tier off of the streets and the sidewalks and the infrastructure. So we're hoping that that gets it done, because that gets us to a pad ready site, which is in effect bringing millions of dollars to a project that we won't have to fundraise for, and we can immediately go in. So I'm hoping finance world looks really good right now. The interest rate environment is significantly improving. The equity market is still lagging a bit, but there are some. We remain hopeful that the federal administration will continue with their desire to fund rural housing, and so that is what I am keeping a very close eye on. So
we have the map. Sorry, I know it took
yeah.
a little lag, but we have it. So for you, in terms of the senior housing, is having some of that infrastructure, especially with the green, where the green dots are, which would be phase 2.
Yeah, that, because what we know is that most of that infrastructure is. Oh, is it like? I was pretending I was in karaoke land. I'm sorry about that. I'm not. Yeah. Where the green dots for the affordable are, to get it as close to the phase 1, phase 2 infrastructure as possible. So in the placement of where we've got this particular site, it really helps, because we know that phase 1 is going to be real heavy on the infrastructure coming in off West Street and Orchard Lane. And then it's just a matter of feeding into the roads and getting it done. So we really like the optimal placement, particularly in these earlier phases. Is that feedback better?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dixie.
You see Arminta?
Oh,
I think there was someone else who wanted to speak. Is she unmuted?
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
We can hear you now.
Oh, you can. Okay.
yes.
I just want to address Dixie's concern, because we have talked about this internally. And the phasing, oh, I need that phasing plan up. Can I point at it from here, or?
Probably.
Yes,
not.
if you're
Oh,
using,
you can?
or if you're using Zoom, you should be able to use the pointer.
Yeah, I am on Zoom. Oop. Where'd it go?
Can you see it? It's up in the screen now.
Okay. And can you see my pointer?
No, you will have to use the you can tell us the street name and we can point at it.
Okay. Basically, the extension of West Street as it goes. Yeah, right there. If you just follow it up to the senior housing, include West Street goes north-south. There you go. Follow it up to the senior housing. So we were thinking, even if phase 1 stays like it is, and these phases can be changed a little bit as long as Public Works and Fire and everything are okay with it. But if phase 1 stays like it is, which we anticipate right now, that backbone street up to the senior would still be included as And it basically be like an offsite of phase one, so that the senior housing would have access. I think that addresses Dixie's concern.
And I think you're speaking about on the map, right where it says West Street, the little road that starts going up. Is that the road that you're talking about?
That is correct. West
Okay.
Street, existing West Street stubs right there at the property, and we're extending it.
Okay.
That would go up to the senior housing.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional comments?
That's all I had.
Thank you. Okay, then if there's no, any additional hands raised? No? Okay. Thank you, Andrea. Okay, so let me bring it back, to the, to the members. Yeah, let's say council, to the members of the committee, to see if there's any questions. So, Member Ansalo Sanchez, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do, Member Velasquez. All right, could we go back a couple slides, please? One more. So I do have a question. I know we're talking about phase 1 and 2, but I'm looking at the full picture. And I remember a comment earlier stating that each phase was going to have 20%. But for phase 3 and 4, I'm only seeing 2 and 3 units. I don't know if that's 20%.
No, but on phase 1 and 2, the developer is producing more than the 20%. So it could carry over to his other phases because overall, the project needs to have the 20% overall. We prefer that all of the affordable units are built concurrently. So if they overproduce more than 20% in one phase, it's better than underproducing at one phase. It's just that it carries over to the next phase.
So then if we are going to, so I know that we're speaking about the duets, that would bring the total, I believe, up to 266. Are we saying that then the affordable units from like maybe phases 3 to 6 will be a lot less than what's proposed on here because we're doing 266 as opposed to, I think that's 177?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's what Beatrice is saying. Like,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, what we're trying to avoid is for us to get to phase 8 and 9 and for them to produce those affordable units. So if they're upfronting those affordable units sooner, that's, I think, better for the community. And then that can, it's sometimes hard depending on the typologies that you have to upfront them. So this in a way is a better situation because we'll get those units sooner, but then in those phases 3 and 4, they won't have to produce as many.
And then for part of the phase 1 and 2 for the senior living inclusionary apartments, I'm assuming those are 100% for folks that are 55 plus. So then those low and very low senior apartments would only be for those in that age group.
Yes,
Okay.
that was what the specific plan envisioned.
Okay. So,
Although,
sorry, because I'm thinking now ahead with knowing that additional context. If we do move with the duets and the senior housing as it is, then that may mean we would not get any more low and very low for other age groups until a lot later down the line through these phases, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
We'd be happy to modify that and take advantage of funding availability out there and do some family, some senior, and just be real strategic about the financing, particularly since I'm thinking about ASIC on this site for rural development in there. So we'll work with you all on what you'd like to see in terms of age restricted versus non-age restricted.
and I think the only thing that we would have to be conscious of, if that was the direction that council was interested in us looking at, is just looking at the EIR and just making sure you know, because we use level of service, we just make sure that there's not traffic impacts that we didn't anticipate. But if there is none, if it's easy to swap out and that's a direction you're interested in, then that's something.
Because I imagine those housing, if we were to move to that, right, wouldn't just be open for families then either. It would be open for anyone interested, or would it only be seniors and families at that point?
A lot of it depends on the funding source, and I think Dixie could talk a little bit more about what they would anticipate.
Mhm. I think when you hear the term senior and families, families is just like a catch-all term for product type 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units as defined by the state, but really anyone can live there, including seniors. And sometimes we have lots and lots of different types of type populations that live there. Sometimes we have a mixture of veterans and families, and sometimes you see single veterans, and sometimes you see family veteran houses, and so it would be the only difference in when you say something is a senior housing is that you can say that you must be 55 or older to live there, but in non-senior housing, you cannot put that age restriction on. So that's the kind of the technical finance distinction.
So can I just, I have a question though, in terms of the concurrency, because I know that's something, obviously this project has been in the works for a long, long time, but that was one of my concerns and issues in regards to the concurrency. And I thought the concurrency, it's not a preference. Beatriz, I think you mentioned that it was a preference. I thought the concurrency is a requirement as part of building. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. It is a requirement through the inclusionary housing ordinance.
Okay. So I just wanted to make clear because, so it is a requirement. So then that way, I want to just make sure that we're clear on that. But I do have a question because I thought when we have the different phases and as part of what was approved through the project, I think for me, it's really important to ensure that we have, I know there's a proposal that's very different from when we went back and there was a project workshop that was provided to the council. There was specific units that were provided under the low density units, the medium density, senior housing obviously was included in that, and the specific under the inclusionary ordinance that we have, which was the percentage that was accounted for moderate, for low and very low income. And at that time, so I just want to make sure that we're clear when this project was approved in terms of the RENA cycle, that it was approved under the specific plan, that it was approved under the general plan, that it was approved under what it's supposed to. I want to make sure we're clear also in terms of what it's subject to and what we need to make sure that before we're looking at modifications or what we're looking at just deviations from what we're doing now is what we need to ensure that we're the documents that it's supposed to be held accountable to.
You mean the affordable housing?
On the affordable housing. Yeah, and we don't have the affordable housing plan. So I guess for me, it's just, so we don't have it yet, but I know obviously this subcommittee was formed to ensure that we were working on the affordable housing plan and that we were working in terms of looking at, I know we have obviously it's a 10-phase master plan, but looking at the holistic view of even in this, obviously this looks like, something that would be important to be able to consider. But I think in the holistic view of if we make any modifications now, as Beatriz mentioned, then we want to upfront some of the units that would be more affordable. But in the bigger picture, what are we deferring? Like in the different phases that were projected to provide the 20%, or giving us some of those units in different phases. And how do we, I think for me is, how do we modify, how do we look at it holistically instead of just phase 1 and phase 2?
Yeah, I think we can look at it somewhat holistically, but this is a 30-year plan. And so realistically speaking, we have to look at the phases that are in the horizon. And that's pretty typical when you have a plan, understanding that the affordable housing plan will probably, you'll have your plan, the best case scenario, your 30-year plan. And as things get phased out, there may be some amendments there. We don't even know at the end of the day in 30 years if the entire thing will be developed. So we have kind of we would reflect what the entitlements say in terms of what is required. But I think the real level of detail are going to come in those earliest phases where we see those on the horizon. And so, I think at this point, I think the focus on these early phases are what we see in the horizon. That's actually what is also reflected in our housing element, because what even HCD said to us is that these are, going to be years and years, and we don't know if these are going to happen anytime soon. So they really wanted us to focus on those early phases. So I kind of see this document as of course, we have certain requirements we legally have to meet, but the affordable housing plan will have a lot more detail on, like as we're reflecting where the actual individual duets would be placed in those earliest phases. And kind of, as you can see here, more of a long-term dialogue about how they're going to achieve the affordable units and what phases.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Megan, but I think for me, because I know I had questioned a lot of where this, massive community, project was going to be. And I know for me, and I've said this before, is, well, with the affordability piece, right, you have to wait until the discussion on the development agreement. That's where you're going to talk about affordability and where these are going to be placed. So I think this is the space now, right? We're here now.
Yeah, it's
and so, we have these different phases. So I think for me, it's I get it that it's a massive project that's going to take a long time, but if we're looking at the entirety of the development agreement, that may change after 30 years, but we still have our due diligence to be able to look at, well, at the early stages, what do we need to be looking at? But we still have to set a development agreement, even within the 30-year frame of what it's going to, where are these affordable units going to be within this 10-phased development, right? And even if we look at putting these units up front, then where are these other units? With these other development phases are going to give us less units down the road. And I'm okay with that, but it's just, how do we look at it? And also in the holistic view in terms of the bigger picture of the development, with the understanding that we're looking at these phases now, but also looking at the bigger picture, because I thought that was our purpose as well when we're putting together the deal points on the development agreement.
Yeah, and the affordable housing plan, like the deal points really are specific to the affordable housing piece, and it's really more tied into the affordable housing plan. And so we will have this kind of plan, as you see, moving forward, and that's the discussion we have, because they have to meet the specific plan requirements, the conditions of approval. So there's already a very narrow roadmap of what they have to achieve. So we're kind of discussing this, and these numbers should be hitting all of those conditions of approval, and that's what you're seeing. But I think in the very short term, and the thing that we're looking at right now is those earliest phases. That's where they have the level of detail that we're talking about. And they want to make sure, while they're looking at the long-term big picture, they also want to make sure that in these earliest phases, which are the ones that are going to roll out first, does this approach work to and maybe you, if I'm mistaking what you're asking, you want to upfront the affordable units in the early phases of 1 and 2. You would look at the larger multifamily development that has low and very low, and that you're looking at these duets as a way of achieving the moderate housing. And the benefit of that is to create that backbone infrastructure that would help with those low and very low units. And that's kind of, I think prior to this, it was actually less aggressive in putting these units up front. And now it looks like, and I don't want to, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just reading what you,
Yeah, and
but-
and I understand. So I guess for me, I'm okay, but I guess for me, what I'm trying to say, and maybe let me make myself more clear, is I see the benefit of upfronting the moderate income units in these phase 1 and phase 2, and then looking at the other phases to be able to do the low and the low and the very low that's included also as part of, you know, the agreement, right? That's part of a part of this agreement. But I also want to ensure, because I also want to ensure that those other low and very low are going to happen in those other phases.
Oh,
and
sure.
That
Yeah.
we're not going to defer those because we've already done the moderate units. And as much as we want the moderates, I also want to make sure that we're also working on those other income limits, those other income levels that are part of this, the
Mhm.
20% inclusionary, and that have been designated as part of this project. And as much as I want the senior housing, because that's really important, I also have to make sure that there is funding for that, right? And that we do have that capital, and we don't have those guarantees either, that that's going to happen within the same time that this is going to happen. And so I think there's a lot of variables that we don't know, but obviously, you know, this is part of what we, you know, enter into housing that we don't know. But I guess that's my concern.
Okay. Well, so I would say with the senior housing, as Dixie mentioned, you know, we can discuss potentially splitting it to senior housing and more, general housing. But one way or another, that is 134 units that takes care of basically, I think it's the first 4 phases for low and very low. And that's nearly half of all the very low and low requirement for the entire subdivision, right? So it's off to a really good start as far as addressing, that requirement and meeting the lower income needs within the subdivision. And so but we have 8 more phases to figure that out. And so we get to phase 5. At phase 5, that's, once we get further into our planning here, which we can get there very quickly, quite frankly. Then we can say at phase 5, or maybe it's late phase 4. I can't remember exactly where it lands. That's where the next set of low and very low units come. All the while, I think there's going to be some moderate, maybe a little bit more moderate in 3 and 4. And then at that point, we can start talking about, that's sort of a townhome design within phase 5. And then we look at the residential study area up in the northwestern corner, and that's an opportunity for more, probably a lot more like the moderate rate type of housing. But these are all ideas that we're in ideas and requirements that we're well aware of, that we're trying to figure out how do we meet these, right? So this isn't like we're uploading now and then, when we get to phase 10 in 30 years or 20 years, whatever it is, maybe we'll figure out how to get more low income housing. That's not what's going on here. So we feel like we're talking about phase 1 and 2, make sure that's the kickoff to the process. And then, as we're showing you, like, we can front load it, and then that just takes care of basically the first 4 phases of affordable housing. So.
And then my other question, and maybe this is to staff, not to you, but maybe to the staff then, because this is all governed by the Miramonte specific plan. Obviously, it's subject to the inclusionary housing ordinance. But in terms of the general plan, then part of the general plan obviously has different criteria, but what general plan? So it's subject to the general plan that it was approved under, which is our 2008 general plan.
Yes and no, as kind of the answer. Yes, it was entitled under the 2005, I think, is it 8? I'm sorry, 2005 general plan. But subsequently we've also had, as people know, HCD requires us to update our housing element every so often. So they, part of the updates to the housing element have included Miramonte within them. So we have had to demonstrate, you know, what the plan is in terms of housing. And the goals that HCD has established for each of the, you know, for the cities in terms of reaching their RENA numbers. So, and when we have updated those housing elements, they haven't been inconsistent with the overall general plan. So we haven't adopted the affordable housing plan yet for Miramonte, and we don't have the development agreement, so we would be subject to the housing element that is now.
So until we
fixed.
adopt it, then we're still subject to the housing element, which we submit to HCD. We're still
Yeah.
under the six, I mean, we're
So
still
we're under the
sixth
new,
cycle?
we're under the new cycle, so it goes to 2031. And it, of course, we're also subject to the general plan, but those things aren't internally inconsistent. So, and we can get some, you know, I don't want to speak out of turn because this is probably going down a little
Okay.
path that would
Mhm.
require more detail from our city attorney, but we're happy to kind of at our next meeting go into a little bit of detail. But the bottom line is, you know, the housing element is a part of the general plan. And so we've amended you know, the housing element.
And we
Okay.
did account for Miramonte
Mhm.
on the updated housing element. Some of the goals that we had established in the previous housing element, we carry them over to the new one because they're still consistent within the community needs. And on the current housing element, we did account, or we projected phase 1 and 2 only because we thought that those were the only two that could
Yeah.
be consistent.
Within that
And,
8-year
and
timeframe.
actually,
Yeah.
I will say that they told us, like, we had more, showed more units, and the HCD said, no, we don't think that's reasonable. We think you're overly optimistic. So we had to like reduce those and then show meeting our numbers in other infill development sites.
Okay, yeah,
So.
Megan, if we can just get clarity on those,
Yeah,
in that,
for
because
sure.
you're right, it is part of the general, the housing element is part of the general plan,
Mhm.
so. Okay, so then for tonight, though, in terms of just, I mean, we're just providing guidance in terms, but we're not making any determination.
No,
It's just whether this would be something that would possibly be feasible or
Yeah.
just guidance, would this work? I mean, obviously, it seems like there's a potential, right? Because there is those affordable units that would be provided. The concurrency, they would be built at the same time, correct?
when you, yeah, I mean, like phase 1 would build their units. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Well, so yeah, so as far as concurrency goes, it's likely that there's going to be a home builder who buys these lots. Let's say what's D.R. Horton or Lennar or Trumark, someone like that. They're going to want to be building at their own pace. But then, say if Eden is running the show on the 134 units, they're going to be going at their own pace as well. So I don't know how you necessarily do you legislate that some way? How do you moderate that concurrency? I don't know how that works, but they would effectively both groups would have their projects to move forward with. Do they? I mean, do they have to be tied together, or is it? I don't know how.
Well, I think we have language in our inclusionary, and we would have to go back. I mean, I don't think they're necessarily tied together. I think in our inclusionary language, I know we wanted to make sure that there was concurrency in terms of not making sure that the units that were not restricted weren't built all.
Mm.
And then we had none of the affordable units, the inclusionary units not built at all.
Right.
Correct? So I don't have the language before me in terms of what the language of the inclusionary ordinance says, but I know that there was, I mean, obviously it was critical to include that concurrency language in there.
Mhm. I mean, so it's the concurrency, I guess it's relative to what, to a phase though, right? It's like, you can't get to phase 2 without
I
the
think
phase
there's some
1.
percentages that we have. to do,
Yeah,
right?
and
I think
Yeah.
there's percentages in
And
terms of.
it is reflected in that phase 1 and phase 2 of what they would need to do.
Yeah.
20% is 63.
Let me, if you go to the next slide, or yeah, the next slide, Andrea. The next one. Yeah, so the require for phase 1, the 20% required is 63 units. And for phase 2, the 20% required is 114. And what he's proposing is, so the total required between phase 1 and 2 is 177. And what he's proposing is 266.
Are you sure that the math is right? So we're at 134 for the senior housing complex, and then it's what, 46 duet units?
You're right, it's wrong.
Because it's 26 and 20, so that's 46.
16, 20. It's wrong. The math is wrong because it would be.
Like maybe the 114 is the total?
I think, yeah, I think that's what it is. This
Let me see, 114 minus 61,
74.
51.
Yeah, because the total is looking to be 182 with 60, 26, 20, and 74.
Let me go back to the other slide, Andrea, where we have the total. We can just do 20% of those numbers.
Yeah, if actually maybe Arminta can talk to this because she probably has the breakdown in front of her.
Yeah, so 63 out of this one.
I can answer this question.
Go ahead.
for it.
This is 50.
Go ahead.
You have
if-
good math skill.
I have kept tables on this from day one when I started working. Whenever we would change a phase line or something, I made sure we had at least 20% with each of the neighborhoods as we went forward. So somebody used my tables, but go back to the slide where we were stumbling because my numbers are cumulative. So the 114 is cumulative between the two phases. That's where the confusion is.
Yes, yeah.
And so just to answer, I have tables and I track and I look at where things might be so that we never make a change that all of a sudden are like, whoops, we can't meet the affordable requirements. So, you know, in future meetings, or Megan, if you want to talk, I think we can provide information to the committee that would help them see the bigger picture like the mayor is asking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Armenta. I think that would be helpful for me. I think for me in terms of visualization and looking at the bigger picture in terms of the total, right? That would be really helpful.
Yeah, if I could put a perspective, because I've worked on a lot of these really big master plan projects my whole career. And the reason that you end up with early build out is because when you take a project like the senior affordable, or even if it became senior plus some family affordable, they need a critical mass of units to make it work. They can't build 20 units at a time. So that's why it puts us so far ahead in the first two phases for their project to even work for them. And so what I track is that I watch that cumulative. So when you go into the next phase, what you're carrying forward, if it's not enough, it shows up right away. And then I know we need to add more affordable in that phase to make sure we're always meeting the total 20% of all the units that have been built to that point. So I don't know if that helps or not, but.
And I think that helps even when we're tracking, I think for us as well, when we're looking at our RENA numbers and we're looking at the compliance within each of those income limits, it makes it easier, at least I'll speak for me. When
Yeah.
you look at, you know, in the long term, because those are 8-year numbers totals, right? And to be able to say, well, within even these 2 phases, right? And looking at the RENA compliance phase, well, this is what we are projected to meet, right? And even
Right.
within the next cycle, you know, we're projected to even, you know, potentially get to this number, right? So even on that broader sense, I think those numbers at the long term, looking at it in a comprehensive manner, at least makes sense for me in that aspect. Instead of looking at, I guess for me, the phase to phase just makes it more difficult. It might be easier for others to look at them up front, but for me, it's just kind of having the comprehensive view with the narrow 1 to 2 makes it just kind of more holistic for me.
It takes both when you're planning and moving forward. You have to look at both. And to always make sure. And the other thing that looking comprehensive helps is when you go from one cycle to the next, you want to be able to account for ones that are maybe being built in one cycle, but credit towards your next cycle because you overbuilt and stuff like that to make sure you get credit for it. So.
And I think that's the big picture. I mean, I will say that the conversation today is somewhat narrow, and it's really more about entertaining. We didn't want to waste the developer's time if this duet proposal, because I think at one point they were talking about ADUs,
Yeah.
and that was a no. So they've, you know, put that aside and now looking at these duets. So we are kind of looking at that, but we definitely understand that the request is, you know, the next meeting to come back with that chart that Arminta is describing that kind of lays out how all the phases would work, you know, how there's, you know, overbuilding and then some credit, so there's not as many, and then maybe phase 5 and 6 you get more built in those phases, and then credit is given in some of the later phases, so we can.
Yeah, and that'll get us to where we need to be for this discussion, for our discussion purposes for the future, right? In terms of the affordability plan, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that was what we're here for as well, is to get us to that phase. So that way we do have the big picture, and we're looking at maybe another view here, but we're looking at, I want to be looking at the big picture in terms of where we're going to be as well.
And I think the nice thing about the duets is that I think council has asked for more different housing typologies and to help. And yes, certainly, Councilmember Ansaldo Sanchez, and that you're really looking for ways to help people get their foot in the door. And sometimes we found that you know, a single family house for a moderate income person is really hard to get finance. So this is this is a way that it can be more affordable for a moderate income person, and then people still want home ownership, so it's an opportunity for our folks to get home ownership opportunities.
And I want to just say that this is something that, you know, we're trying to see everything full picture, but I do want to say that this is something that seems to be a good way to go at this point, because it does diversify our housing stock, and it also hopefully will ensure that our residents that are living in Soledad do stay in Soledad. But I just want to make sure that we are full picture, narrow, and then zoom in and out, as they say. For me especially, because I just don't want to get to a point where years down the road, when we're no longer on council, things change and it goes kind of against what we kind of envisioned as well and what was proposed for this sort of general plan cycle. Because I think from the last general plan that a lot of stuff didn't get finished, you know, and that we're kind of catching up to, and I wouldn't want that to happen in the future either. I think that's where I'm kind of coming from.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think for me, I mean, I've been at this a little bit longer than Fernando.
Oh, yes.
And I think just because I know that this is a very, it's 40% of the city's footprint, and it's a significant housing development for the city. And the reason, obviously, for this specific committee is because we want to make sure that we get it right and be able to work with the developer to ensure that our city has the housing that it needs, right? And I think we've really supported the diversification of a housing stock to ensure that we have a different, different type of housing that our city needs. And we know that we're growing and we need smaller housing units that really meet the housing needs of our community. And we have seen that a lot of people we still have people that want to be homeowners. How do we support that? The city has invested a lot too, and, looking for funding to be able to support, how do we support more people becoming homeowners? And how do they have those opportunities still be able to afford a home and be able to work with our families that can still be homeowners? So I think it's important to be able to provide the housing that our community needs and wants, and how do we work to be able to make that happen, given, our current financial, market that we have, right? It's not like it used to be 30 years ago. And so how do we look at different opportunities? So bringing different ideas, I think it's important. So looking at all of the different things that we have before us in different housing types, I think it's really important. So I really appreciate that. And senior housing, Dixie, I think it's really important. I think the last time we built a senior housing development was probably, when Chispa built a senior housing development. And so that's been a long time. And we know throughout California, not just in Soledad, we have an aging population, and so we need to be building more senior housing. So I think that's really important for our community to be able to do that as well, and looking at those opportunities as we move forward. So thank you for having those conversations with us tonight as we make sure that we really ensure that this project is meaningful and important to our community. So thank you. So with that, then I think as we move forward, I think I think for us in terms of the guidance is given the that we're going to get some more affordable units up front in phase 1 and phase 2, given that it's giving us a different typology of housing that is more affordable on the moderate scale. And obviously we still have to see when it still has to come back to the council, right?
Oh, yes. And I should probably clarify, yes, we're still going to be having
Conversations
conversations
about it.
with you all. And then at some point when we're ready for action, it would go to the full council, but there's still,
So there's more
discussions.
details to have.
Yeah, they're going to be coming back. And I think I don't want to speak for Lace, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're anxious to get the development agreement moving on. So I suspect we'll probably be having at least monthly meetings
Yes.
from here until it goes to
Yeah.
council.
So I would like to lay in it, and we're committed to making sure that we work with you to make sure that we have the development agreement, that we work with you to that we have a development agreement, because I think it's in our interest also to ensure that that gets done as well. So I think if we can set a date, Megan, that is, I don't know if that works for you, but that we have a date.
Yeah, we could set a date for the next meeting.
And then maybe if there's a regular meeting date that we have at least every month, and if we don't need to meet, then that's okay. We can cancel the meeting, but at least we schedule a monthly meeting for next year. That I think that would probably be best. So we have that scheduled meeting already.
Yeah.
I highly support, endorse, encourage regular
Yeah.
meetings.
Okay.
Yes.
And I don't know, does Monday work? I know we could work on your schedule.
It's fine.
So.
Yeah.
Is Monday the better day to have these committee meetings, or what day of the week works best for the two of you?
I'm open to Mondays. It just depends which are we gonna do, like the second Monday, third Monday, or what's
Yeah, I probably would be good to do the third.
and I say that because January 19th is Martin Luther King
Yeah.
Jr. Day.
So it's
So
a
maybe in January, we could either do the 12th or the 26th. Let's 12th, okay.
Let me look at my calendar.
And then we also have in February we have
Is that a
Well,
Fed?
President's Day too.
maybe we
so-
can keep it at the second Monday of the month.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Yeah.
And that will be off council, so maybe that's a good time too.
Okay.
Yeah, Mondays work for me. Actually, Mondays work better for me.
So
Same.
second
Yeah.
Monday of the month. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. So then that we can have those agendized and calendared. And then if we don't need to, then we can at least cancel those in advance. So that way we give sufficient notice.
Our city attorney just informed me that that also is good for him too.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so let me go back to my agenda. Okay, is there any additional comments before we adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, so it's I guess more of a question. In this desire for a diversified housing stock, what specifically are you looking for? Do you have ideas of what that looks like?
So we actually did approve, right? I think we looked at our land use. Didn't we do a land use review of the different types of housing units that we wanted to look at?
I
not-
kind of recall that too.
Yeah.
We did the updated yes, we did it for the general plan. It was more of like the housing programs and typology that we would
Yeah.
like to see. Mhm.
And I
The neighborhood types.
The neighborhood types on the land use.
Mhm.
And I think because this has been sort of approved, we have to look at the specific plan, and the reason why we could entertain the duets is I think there's a provision in the specific plan, and I believe it talks about duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the
Right.
mix that you are open to, but
Mhm.
beyond that, we might have some challenges.
So the residential study area though is a little bit more open.
The residential study area is open.
Yeah.
And I think in our community, I mean, just speaking from what we heard through all of the outreach, people are really interested in townhomes,
Mhm.
but maybe with more yard. Like
Okay.
I think the criticism of Las Viviendas is that there wasn't any open space attached to it. So even if there's more common area associated, but those sold very
Yeah.
well.
Okay. So you're saying open space in general, or not necessarily larger yards per.
Yeah,
That's
not-
our- it's a-
I mean, people just wanted a little something like
Space,
this, like
space,
a little
yeah.
barbecue area, or maybe it's the common space that can be accessible, but in Las Viviendas, there's not a lot of common open space either. And so when you have no private open space and very little common open space, it just becomes
Yeah.
it's the one criticism I have heard
Right. Okay.
consistently from the people who live there.
Okay.
And I think also because hopefully we can do higher density. I think I've talked about this
Right.
with you before of having if they're attached townhomes instead of it being like up and down, it can be side and side.
Right. Like the
to-
3-story approach or something like that. Yeah.
Correct. Something like that, I think would be interesting, but having those open spaces, I think would be critical as well, because people still have families,
Mhm.
pets and stuff, and would like to have something outside.
So I used to live in a townhome, and the back patio was 10 feet deep. It's 20 feet by 10 feet. That was our private space. But right on the side of that fence was an open area.
Yeah.
And I take my dog out there every day, and my
Yeah.
kids run around there. So that makes a big difference, having that
Yeah.
space.
Kind of like behind where I live, there's the Gardenia place,
Mhm.
and so their townhomes, they have small yards. So I
Right.
think that would be something people would be interested in.
But we need to be careful because we do have
Right.
specifics in terms of what is included already as part of the duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, right, in the smaller.
Yeah, I mean, we
and
would have,
what-
exactly, we'd have to make sure we would work, I mean, if this
And the
council is open to
specific
the,
plan.
to the residential study area, looking at these kind of typologies, we could work with the developer to figure out how to, check the boxes of the environmental document,
Yeah.
but provide more of that.
Yeah, but so for today's discussion, I think let's just focus on what we have here and then we can.
Yeah.
Well, sure, but that just helps understanding moving forward, just so that, because the residential study area is basically 31 acres that we have to plan. And we have it's like, it's open. You know, it's not restricted to this many single family or these duets, triplexes. It's whatever we want to do with it, basically.
This area doesn't have the vesting tentative tract map.
No.
So we have kind of the entitlement in the specific plan for the whole thing. And so there's more flexibility because this is the
So it
little
doesn't
area.
have to meet the specific criterias that are within.
It
the
has to meet the specific
specifications?
plan, but it's not mapped out like the rest of the area where we have, because we have a vesting tentative tract map that covers everything, but I believe the residential study area is not part of that. So there's more flexibility. Whereas the part where you have the vesting tentative tract, it's more locked down.
But those would still need to be these like duplex, triplex, fourplex that were mentioned before. That's part of what we have.
No, because
In
that
the
has more
plan.
flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm saying is in the area that's the vesting tentative tract, we have a lot less flexibility. But in the residential study area, there's a lot more flexibility, and the developer has expressed an openness to provide
Got it.
those typologies. We just have to look to see the environmental document at the end of the day. That would be the driving and
To
the
see what was
specific plan.
approved in the environmental document
Yeah.
in terms of the mitigation and what.
Yeah, and the
was in there,
density and the,
densities.
yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, also within the multi-family area within the tract map, we have the opportunity to do townhomes there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
I fully intend on doing that. So. Okay.
Okay, so with that, if there is no additional items of business, then I will